Hi there. So in this video, I want you to go ahead and watch Perfect Competition in the Short Run, Microeconomics 3.7. It's a Jacob Clifford video. And while you're doing it, you can actually do this problem set. So I've put that video in the YouTube playlist for this unit. Make sure you go ahead and watch that. And then you can come back to this video and we can go through the answers together if you need that. All right, so assuming you've watched that video, the first thing that they talk about is what kind of product do firms produce? Well, in Perfect Competition, they produce identical products, right? They're all the same, perception and in reality. The perfectly competitive firm is a price taker. It's the idea that they get the price from the market, right? So the market tells the firm, here's what the price is going to be, because no firm can raise or lower their price or else they'd lose all their sales. How would you describe the demand curve for a perfectly competitive firm? Is it inelastic, elastic, perfectly inelastic, or perfectly elastic? Well, it's that horizontal line, so we know that it's perfectly elastic, right? So we know it's horizontal line, so therefore it's perfectly elastic. And that actually is what tells us, if they were to raise their price, they'd lose all their sales because there's a in total response into any changes in price. Where does a perfectly competitive firm produce? So that's saying like what quantity. And we would know to maximize profit, they always produce at the quantity at which MR is equal to MC. Now, if we have a perfectly competitive firm that's producing an output that gives them a profit, where is the ATC located in relation to MR and demand, in relation to Mr. Dart? And we would say that ATC is less than the price, which is equal to the marginal revenue and the demand curve. So we'd say ATC, where they're at, is below that marginal revenue and price and the demand curve, because that's what's telling us they're earning a profit. So we have these kind of profitability conditions, and all we're doing there is just comparing ATC to the price. If the cost is less than the price, then they're actually earning a profit. So then it says, suppose this information existed for a firm, and we're going to go ahead and graph that firm. So price, quantity, and we're going to put our Mr. DARP here, marginal revenue equal to demand equal to average revenue equal to price, and it tells us that that's at $15. The next thing we're going to add is a marginal cost curve, which we know is the firm's supply curve. And it tells us that the MR equals the MC at the quantity of 10 units. So we have 10 units there. And then it gives us the ATC value, but the ATC value is $10 at that 10 unit quantity. So that means the ATC, the U shape, is going to intercept maybe somewhere like right in there rather than above where that 15 is. So we're going to come down, hit the minimum of the ATC, and then come back up again. And so that, dot over to it, that is $10. And now we've got a couple of questions. First, it's going to say determine total revenue. Now, total revenue is just what's the price times the quantity. So 15 times 10 is 150. And that's actually this big box here, right? The big box. The second question says total cost. Now, total cost you can also figure out because it's the ATC times the quantity. Because we know that, if ATC is just what's the total cost divided by the quantity, well, we just multiply quantity times ATC and we can figure out what the total cost is. So, well, what's the quantity? It's 10, and the ATC value there is $10. So 10 times 10 is $100. And now we can subtract the two and figure out what profit is. So profit is 50, but we can also notice that here, the distance between the price, this is the price up here at 15, and the ATC value here is 5. That's a vertical distance. That's the profit per unit. And if we go over the 10 units, that box is our profit rectangle. So we could calculate the profit by just seeing like, okay, it's $5 per times 10 units for an area of $50. So, and their profit per unit, 5. Now, the last two questions in the long run equilibrium, what's true for a perfectly competitive firm about TR and TC? They're equal. They're equal. That's because in the long run equilibrium, right, perfectly competitive firms earn a normal or zero economic profit. And we're going to learn about in just a little bit why that is. Okay, now I'm going to pause this and then we're going to watch a second Jacob Clifford video. Okay, so in this, I'm going to ask you to do part B. I want you to watch this YouTube video. It's called The Shutdown Rule. And I think he's actually changed the name of it since I made my problem set. So he calls it The Shutdown Rule Microtopic 3.6. So that's his numbering system. So if you were to search that, You should be able to find it. You can also find it in this playlist for this unit. Now, the first thing that he's going to say here is, what's the shutdown price for a perfectly competitive firm? It's if the price is below the AVC, the average variable cost. And then assume, as Mr. Clifford explains, that the firm involved in his example does produce where MR equals MC at the price of 5 and the quantity of 10, what will be the total revenue for the firm? So if you go through this video, you should be able to find like some of the answers to these questions, right? He's pretty straightforward here. He gives you, the total revenue is 50, and if they produce, right, then he gives you actually $12 here is the total revenue. Sorry, miswrote that one. The total revenue would be 50 because it's 5 times 10. The total cost, if they actually produced, is 12 times 10 for 120, so they lose 70. So if you watch this video, he walks you through these. What would be the firm's loss if it closed down and just had to cover its fixed cost? Well, as he explains, that box that he's got drawn right there is the distance between 12 and 7 times 10. That's the fixed cost, so 50. And so it should shut down because the price, as you can see in his video, has fallen below AVC. When will the firm continue to produce in the short run while suffering a loss? Explain. So they'll continue to produce if price is greater than AVC. Now, they'd be losing money, right, in this scenario. If they're losing money, that means kind of the other way to say it would be that AVC is here, price is greater than that, the price is less than the ATC. And that's because they cover all their fixed cost and some of their variable cost. So it's the idea that they can cover all that box of the fixed cost by operating and maybe a little bit of the variable cost, but not all of it. And so they're still losing money, but they're losing less than they would be if they shut down. So this is that kind of decision that they have to make. Well, they're in the losses, they're below ATC, but then they have to compare it to the AVC. So under what conditions would a firm shut down? They should shut down if price is less than the AVC, because, again, it says explained, because they lose only their fixed cost. Okay, so hopefully this helps you understand the idea of the shutdown rule. I'll see you next time.